County, even though our children make up more than half the student body, we don't have any Puerto Rican or Latinos elected into the school board, and there's 8 members. So keep that in mind, it's real important. But I also wanted to thank Doug, because he recently lost his father, and that's why he's not here. He's in Michigan, and he also had a personal accident, but he's still hanging in there and still fighting for us, and I'm really thankful that he's been there with the community at all times. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
I came a little late, but I can speak. As Soraya said, we worked so hard, and myself for over 20 years. We don't want to leave anybody out, other minority groups, which is very sizable, like the Asian community and other communities. We have to fight our own battles.
Yep.
Nobody helps us. Not the whites, not the blacks, nobody. And if we do not listen to what Mr. Head said, and we don't get the numbers in our brains, we will continue another decade to be what we are. Battle on the fucking pole. You go to places, there are no Hispanics, and those are governmental positions. We are more than 1/3 of the entire population, but our so-called leaders, which I don't know who they are, they always working behind the scenes to denigrate whatever effort is being done. I applaud Soraida's Boricua effort, because she is the one at this point, and I should know better, that is bringing this kind of meetings together so the people can learn. We are too many. There are more than 80,000 Hispanics registered in Orange County, and we don't even have one voice in the school board. So we have to put ourselves by our own bootstraps and make it happen.
That's right.
We got another question. Okay. Another question? Great. Go ahead.
Hi. I just want to make a comment, not to be decisive, but I think that the meeting tonight was for Hispanics, so I think that's why he had the clip that he had. And I think that's what we're here for. And I understand we need to be inclusive, but like she said, we as Hispanics, we also need to learn to stand up. And we need to stand up for ourselves, right?
Thank you, and thank you, Doug Head, for your presentation. This night, I also want to give a big thanks to Ana Méndez for helping us getting this place, and just a round of applause. I also want to mention that the Green Party is co-hosting with the live stream. They have shared our the Facebook live stream. We are not endorsing anyone. It's just they wanted to partner with us, and we said yes, we will partner with anyone who wants to partner with us to get the information out and get people this education. Ms. Robin Harris is the representative with the Green Party, and we thank you for coming over. I wanted to talk to everyone really quick about bridging that gap between government and the people. Right now, we have a few candidates in the House and elected officials. If all the candidates can stand up really quick so that everyone can see you. All the candidates, please stand up. And please stay standing. So these are the people who will be representing, or they're like Vivian Rodriguez is the representative of Darren Soto, and Jackie is representing Mr. Smith. These are the people that you have to go over and speak to and get to know. I challenge you guys, you the candidates, to also bridge that gap with the people. I had this week, a lady in my office. I work at a middle school, I do community outreach. And she told me that she has given up on the process of voting. A lot of this comes with not having a relationship with the people. And I think if you guys, as candidates, go into the community and make these relationships, not just for voting, but go in and have a relationship with the minorities of America, the Black community, the Hispanic community, the poor. You will be bridging that gap. You will be giving that, that information, that education, that power that they don't have. Right now, they see you guys as the untouchable. They don't know you. But if you go to a hotel where all these people are living, that I have kids in hotels living, meet them, have a relationship with them, and that gap will be lessened. So I challenge you guys to do that. I challenge everyone in here to go speak to the elected officials, and we need to start bridging this gap. Not only in the Hispanic community, but in all communities. The rich, they're already voting. You guys don't have to worry about the rich. You have to worry about the poor and the minorities. Thank you. You could come to the mic, so that everyone can hear you and the live
Otherwise, I
stream.
get an itch.
I have to say something. Hello, my name is Tad Belly. And for the candidates, Jackie, our friend here, and Vivian, I forgot your name. Amy. I really have to make a difference. And let's rewind. Many of us were raised in the island, right? ¿Verdad que sí? And there was a difference there in the island between politiquería and política. Our people distanced themselves from politiquería. And eventually, they thought that that was the definition of politics. So now that they're coming here, now that they're making a difference, now that we understand that this system works in a different fashion from what they were used to in the island, we need to also teach that there's a big difference from that picture that they had in the island of that politiquería, and really engage into the politics of this new state that they're living in. Thank you.
Thank you. To continue with the program, we're going to have Jackie Centeno also running for District 2 School Board.
It is my honor and my privilege to present to you our special guest for tonight, who's going to be talking to you about the Jones Act. I'll give you a little bio about him. Philip Arroyo, if you can come stand next to me up here, please. Philip Arroyo was selected as the only Puerto Rican to serve in the 2012 White House internship, having worked within the office of the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, where he analyzed domestic and economic issues during his time at the White House. Arroyo also served as Special Assistant on Federal Affairs to Puerto Rico's Senate President in 2008, and served in the same capacity for the island's Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. He is the longest serving president of the Puerto Rico Young Democrats from 2009 to 2013, and was elected in Chicago, Illinois as the founding chairman of the Young Democrats of America National Hispanic Caucus in 2012, and served until the end of his term in 2014. Arroyo is on record at the United Nations in New York, having testified on 3 occasions, 2005, 2015, and 2016, against Puerto Rico's colonial political status with the United States. He has appeared in numerous local, national, and international news and political talk shows, and is a frequent guest on world-renowned Hispanic journalist Jorge Ramos' political talk show, Al Punto con Jorge Ramos, and Univision News. He has also appeared as a frequent guest on international news outlets such as Al Jazeera in the Middle East and China's global television network in Asia. Arroyo is a political columnist for 3 respected publications: Univision News, El Nuevo Día, Puerto Rico's top newspaper, and Latino Rebels, a national Latino blog created at Harvard University. At the local level, he is a community organizer and activist on criminal justice and civil rights issues, most notably having led a successful initiative to include Hispanics within crime data in Orange County, Florida. Arroyo holds a Juris Doctor law degree from Florida A&M College of Law and lives in a simple life in Central Florida with his girlfriend Josephine Balzac, who's also here, an environmental attorney and college professor. Please help me welcome our guest, Mr. Philip Arroyo.
Thank you, Jackie, and you know, this is the first time I hear somebody talking about me in front of the public like that. I was kind of nervous. I'm like, it's never happened before to me. So it's really good to be here. Antes que nada, voy a empezar en español. ¿No tienen problema con eso? No. Que aquí somos Boricua, ¿verdad? Y para mí, a mí no hay nada que me causa mayor satisfacción que hablar en mi lengua nativa, que es el español. But for the benefit of those culturally challenged, I will. I'm just playing. I know a lot of people here are going to learn Spanish.
We're not shy.
There's a lot of Puerto Ricans coming over, so we're going to be the next Miami. So it's great to be here. Zoraida, the leadership of Misión Boricua, the elected officials, Amy Mercado, Darren Soto's office is present as well. Thank you for being here. And I just want to start off by congratulating Misión Boricua because I think that the best weapon against tyranny is education. That's the best weapon. And obviously activism is important, mobilization is important, but education is the key to everything. And that's why I'm happy to see that there's Latinos running for school board. I'm happy to see African Americans running for more positions. And I just want to, before I begin, I just want to address you know, what was said earlier before I came up. I think that they're right in what they say that we should stand together and pull our bootstraps. But we have a lot to learn also from the example that the African American community has showed throughout the years. During the 60s, they stood up. We haven't yet. We're going to get them. But we're going to use them as an example. And we're going to walk with them towards that promised land that I'm sure that we're all going to go after. So without further ado, I'm just going to pull up the laptop up here real quick. Can I pull it up real quick? Make it a little bit less formal. You know, when I was a kid, having said that, when I was a kid, I became an activist. One of the reasons I became an activist was the examples by many African American leaders like Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King. And I remember like people would say, why are you following their example? You're white and have blue eyes. But I'm Latino, I'm Puerto Rican, but I admire that fight. And I sort of adopted that from them because I learned a little bit from each. And I think that Latinos have to adopt and integrate that to our struggles. And we'll get there. Okay. So this is a slide I prepared. Oh. Technical difficulties. Thank God he's here because I'm technically challenged. So Zoraida, when she called me, she said, would you be available to talk about the Jones Act? I said, absolutely. Most of you know me as the Puerto Rican guy who's fighting for the decolonization of Puerto Rico. As most of you know, Puerto Ricans can't vote for president, and the political status issue is one of the main concerns on the island, and it limits its powers as a country, or if it was a state as well, we don't have the rights as we have here. But that's an entire other topic. The Jones Act is actually a component of that topic, which is, as you know, if you're Puerto Rican, you know this is a very complicated issue, the political status, and it's easy to go down the rabbit hole. But I'm going to focus tonight on the Jones Act, which I've titled Breaking the Chains. And it's interesting because this not only affects Puerto Rico, it affects Hawaii, and it affects Alaska. A lot of people don't know that, so we have to be very careful and not just only embracing this as a Puerto Rican issue, because we have brothers and sisters in Hawaii and Alaska who are going through the same struggles, and there are many outspoken leaders in Congress on both sides of the aisle. You'd be surprised who's advocating for repealing this very outdated law. So the Merchant Marine Act of 1920, which should not be confused with 1917, which is another law where Puerto Ricans became U.S. citizens, is an act to provide for the promotion and maintenance of the American merchant marine and national security. And I want you to hold in your mind national security, lock that in your head. And it was also created, basically what this law does is that foreign international vessels, ships, entering Puerto Rico must be on U.S. ships with U.S. crew and manned by U.S. people from the United States. Now, what does that mean, Philip? I mean, you're not making any sense. So what it means is that, hold on. If an international country wants to trade with Puerto Rico directly, they're unable to do so. Why? Because U.S. Congress has plenary powers over Puerto Rico. Basically, Puerto Rico's a colony. And, you know, I have to, you know, with all due respect to all the parties here, I'm happy to know that there's Republicans, Democrats, Green Party, and even some factions within the Democratic Party. I think Bernie Sanders has a lot to do with everybody embracing the word colony. Because colony, when I interned in Congress in 2004, and when I entered in the White House in 2012, you said the word colony, that was like a taboo. Like, oh my God, he just said colony, oh my God. This guy is, you know, he's an extremist. But when Bernie Sanders went to Puerto Rico, and I got so excited, and my girlfriend Josie can tell you, and his first words when he came to Puerto Rico was like, we have to get rid of the colony. All of a sudden, it was cool to say colony. So, and now you're seeing congressmen and people saying, yeah, we have to decolonize Puerto Rico. And I was like, thank you, God, you know, finally. So it just shows how elected officials, celebrities, people who have stature, if you can educate those people and they say it on the record, it becomes a trend. And that's why I think celebrities and people in elected position have such an enormous responsibility, and they wield so much power. Not only governmental power, but power in that sense, like Bernie Sanders when he got on the stage. I was jumping up and down on the excitement. It was an historic day. So basically, if an international vessel comes to Puerto Rico, they can't, you know, take off the merchandise off the ship and put it on the island. It has to be taken to Jacksonville, unloaded from Jacksonville. And I'm going to show you slides up ahead with a more visual example. And then that cargo goes onto a U.S. ship, and then it's shipped to Puerto Rico. Now, what does that cause? It causes increased prices, because you have to pay the people who take the cargo off in Jacksonville. There's a lot of workers in Jacksonville, and ultimately, it's a lot more expensive. So this is the purpose of the Jones Act. Those who support keeping the Jones Act say that it protects the U.S. maritime shipping industry, jobs, and its workers. And this is where the presentation gets a little bit sensitive. And it's the reason why I believe that it's not, this law hasn't been attended effectively in Congress is because if we eliminate the cabotage laws or the Jones Act and let foreign vessels go directly to Puerto Rico, there's going to be a lot of jobs in Jacksonville affected. And that's true. That's a legitimate problem. It's a legitimate concern. And there's a lot of unions who are against repealing the Jones Act because most of their paying members are going to lose their jobs. So that's a really tough situation. And we all know unions are big donors of the Democratic Party. So when you have the situation where you have leaders of the Democratic Party who believe that this should be repealed, but who gets you elected? Those donors, right? They donate to your campaign, so it's tough. It's tough. National Defense, a recent study by the Miami Herald and the Government Accountability Office revealed that this argument is old. In 1920, it was inserted into the law based on the argument that, well, we have to have U.S. ships coming to Puerto Rico because if not, then we can have terrorists come in. Also, recently they're even using the argument of, undocumented immigrants are going to go through the ships. But that report stated that never in the history of the United States has there either been a terrorist attack through the maritime industry, and the overwhelming majority of undocumented immigrants arrive to this country through plane. It's not even through the border. The majority come through plane, outstaying their visas. But some people in Congress don't understand that. But I'm not going to get into that. So. But the real reason behind this, and specifically national defense, is the military-industrial complex. There's a lot of money being made on aircraft carriers, jets, and the Jones Act specifically protects people who manufacture aircraft carriers. And that's a really, really, really profitable business. Billions of dollars at aircraft carriers. And this is just a piece of data on my last point, that Senator John McCain, who I told you guys you're gonna find out about some really surprising advocates for this. Senator John McCain has actually been supporting that this law be repealed. And we have to commend him for that. I've always respected him for that. I rarely agree with him, but when he's right, when we agree on something, I'm gonna mention it. We have to give him credit. He's basically been alone advocating for this because it's affected Alaska, and he knows how it can affect other states because Arizona has a huge trading partnership with Mexico. And Mexico has even stated on the record that they trade more with Arizona, get this, than with Spain. So it has benefited Arizona greatly, and the fact that he advocates for other states, it just says a lot about him. So he said that aircraft carriers end up costing billions of dollars more because of this act. For example, the USS Gerald Ford, which was a recent aircraft carrier, was supposed to cost $10 billion. That's what Congress told us. It ended up costing $12 billion. And guess who pays for that? Each and every one of you. And if the Jones Act was repealed, it would be it would have been $10 billion, it would have been cheaper. But there's a lot of interest. And guess how many companies in the US make aircraft carriers? One. No competition. So repealing this law would actually create competition, which is good. Because if this country talks about free market, free competition, why are they holding on to this law? Is somebody in Virginia, where that company is, nervous? Are those donors giving more money to Congress to look the other way? I'm not saying it. You guys come to that conclusion. So this is the fellow who created the Jones Act. What do you guys think? He looks like a nice guy? So Mr. Senator Wesley Jones sponsored and secured passage of the Jones Merchant Marine Act, which stipulated that only American ships could carry cargo between American ports. And then this caused Alaska to be dependent on Seattle-based shipping. Guess where Senator Jones is from? Huh? I didn't hear. Seattle, right? Oh, okay.
It's like a coincidence.
Big little interest there, right? And it also, obviously, over the years, caused Hawaii to be dependent on California, and ultimately Puerto Rico to be dependent on the US, specifically Florida. So I just wanted to show this slide because even from the origin, the birth of this law, there was political interest, and there was pretty sure there was economic interest as well. Because this law directly and specifically benefited the Senator Wesley Jones state and the city, Seattle. This is where it gets complicated. But I've always taught as a young guy that, or when I was a little kid, that you have to face problems. You can't run away from them. Repealing the Jones Act, by most experts, they've stated that it would help Puerto Rico greatly. It would give them more power, it would jumpstart their economy, but it could hurt Florida. The domestic shipping industry is an economic juggernaut in Florida, contributing 52,000 maritime jobs, and it injects $9.6 billion to Florida's economy, according to the study of PricewaterhouseCoopers. The Port of Jacksonville is the nation's hub for the Jones Act shipping to Puerto Rico. And I'm going to go more into that. So this is the crossroads that we find ourselves in. Unions have always been against this, repealing this, because obviously it goes against their interest, because a lot of American jobs would be lost. But the question I pose to you is, weren't Puerto Ricans Americans too? Because, you know, for some things we're American, and for some things we're not. So the other day when I was watching CNN, and they were like, you know, I see Democratic members of Congress and other leaders saying, they're American citizens, so we have to stand up for them. And I was like, yeah, what happened to the Jones Act? Why don't they say the same thing? So, you know, it's complicated. Congressman Darren Soto has actually been on the record for this, and he's acknowledged this problem. You know, it is a problem. It's not like we're going to forget about those workers that are going to lose those jobs. We have to come to a middle road. You know, it's not like we're going to repeal the act and then the next day all those jobs are going to get rid of them. No, we have to find a middle road and how we can get into a compromise and maybe a transitional period where we can protect both interests, both in Florida and in Puerto Rico. And I know Congressman Darren Soto has stated that for the record. Sometimes there's fights that look uphill, but if we come together, we can find a way out. We can figure something out. So this is the visual example. Okay. So I'm going to take you through a shipping from Australia. This is a cargo from Australia, right? And it usually takes from Australia around 62 days for cargo to arrive to Puerto Rico. It would be almost less than half of that if they can receive cargo directly instead of stopping in Jacksonville. So it takes, on day 8, it arrives in China. Day 15, Japan. And this is where it gets interesting. It gets to California, day 27. And then after the cargo arrives to California, this is what I call it, puente terrestre. This is the land bridge, I call it. It arrives to the port in California. It gets on trucks. And there are a lot of trucks, which means there are a lot of jobs. A lot of unions too. Those trucks transport that cargo to Jacksonville. Jacksonville goes down to Puerto Rico. And it takes 63 days. 62, I'm sorry. So you can see why the whole go around when if Puerto Rico had the ability to receive cargo directly, you would cut costs, you would cut time, and a lot of these products that Puerto Rico receives are, you know, petroleum, clothes, and even food. And I'm going to go into more data about that. This is a really scary data. Puerto Rico's agricultural sector was number 1. Okay, almost 70% of agriculture in Puerto Rico was Puerto Rico's number 1 industry. And the U.S. Sugar Trust operated over 98%, controlled 98% of the sugar market of the United States. Domino's. You can ask my girlfriend when I go to the supermarket, I'm like, echa pa allá. You know, compra Domino, don't buy Domino's sugar.
That's right.
Domino's Sugar through the U.S. Sugar Trust, they pretty much took over Puerto Rico's lands. Well, they stole it. We had a really thriving sugarcane industry. That's where the whole machetero thing came into play, but I'm not going to get into that. So agriculture was 70% of Puerto Rico's economy. Today it's only 1%. Because of the manufacturing industry. As I said, the U.S. Sugar Trust was a big juggernaut. It was a huge sugar interest. Took over the lands, paid the workers very low wages, caused a revolution, a short-lived revolution. And and they totally decimated the agricultural industry in Puerto Rico. Just think, if Puerto